Very good evening and welcome to the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Today on the show, we're asking the question about how safe and reliable are our skies as domestic aviation comes back to pre-pandemic levels and in some cases is surpassing it. We're seeing more and more incidents taking place on various airlines. Now, what I'm referring to is the delay of several Spicejet flights earlier today. The company says, the airline says, it's due to a ransomware attack last night that they managed to avert. Now, how exactly has this airline found itself vulnerable to a ransomware attack? And what's the bigger picture there? Does it raise a question mark on our safety in the skies? We're going to be tackling that subject on the show today. And hundreds of passengers were stranded at various airports after Spicejet flight departures slowed down this morning. It's alleged, and the company says there was an attempted ransomware attack. Flight operations were hit for several hours. While the airline claims that flights were operating normally after some time, some passengers resorted to social media to live tweet and live report the delay in their flights. Now, while the concern over delayed flights is always one that irritates passengers, the bigger question that we're asking today is the possibility of a ransomware attack on a leading airline, and what are the implications of this? To speak on this, I'm joined by Mark T. Martin, MRAES, and founder and CEO of Mcon Consulting, Captain Amit Singh, founder of Safety Measures Foundation, Dheeraj Mathur, aviation expert, is also joining us on the show. But if you have software systems which are vulnerable to attacks, they can be even more devastating consequences. Mark, you want to come in on this?
Hi, Tamanna. Thanks for having me. A very impactful incident. I'm going to, the real issue, I'm bringing facts here, is airlines increasingly are moving to the cloud. So for the last 10 years, Spicejet and several airlines moved their flight operation systems onto cloud servers. They've moved their crew management system, their rostering system, maintenance and engineering system is now all of the clouds. When I've run a couple of airlines in my career as COO and CEO, and I'll be clear, I would always want, the critical systems and softwares to be local server based. But cloud computing, while has its positives, the immense negativity and the immense risks and threats is something which is omnipresent. This is not the first time this has happened. It's happened several times in the past. Even in India, CERT-In, which is the government of India digital penetrating and ethical hacking and testing and penetration testing organization under the Ministry of INT, has also done experiments and tests with getting into flight dispatch management software, your entire operation management suite of Air India as well. There have been several findings, and these findings no one has really acted upon. And the unfortunate part is, this centers on digital. This has got nothing to do with airports. It's got nothing to do with ATC. Yes, we're now moving increasingly to satellite-based systems. We're moving to SBAS. It all creates a threat. We've been having this for a very long time, right from GPS systems coming on board. The question is, this could have been catastrophic. We've seen this on ground. We managed to contain it. We're believing what Spicejet says. But this tells me that a lot of the Spicejet systems is vulnerable. And in addition to Spicejet, several other airlines in the region have an identical digital IT framework, which is cloud-based. And this raises the whole question is, do we need to have airlines' critical flight operation systems? Do we need them to be on cloud? And the DGCA has no capability today with IT oversight. They're an airworthiness oversight organization.
Let me get Dheeraj in on this point. Let me get Dheeraj in on this point. Obviously, there will be technological advances, and Indian Airlines are moving with them as well. But do you see this as the sort of weak link, Dheeraj Mathur? And do you think there's a need to relook at these systems?
Yeah, hi Tamanna, thanks for having me on the show. Look, let's get real. India, the FBI in a report has found that India is the number 3 most vulnerable and attacked company as far as cybercrime is concerned. cybercrime is here to stay. Now, the cloud is here to stay, and the cloud is the future, and who knows what will come beyond the cloud. So we can't really halt the progress of technology. What we need to do is keep abreast with it as far as safety and security is concerned. Now, we've had a number of high-profile cyber attacks within India. There was a case of Big Basket. There was an education startup that, in 2020, every year we hear of a major cyber attack. So the fact is that this has to be looked at holistically. As far as cybercrime can't be dealt partly by DGCA, partly by every sector. There will be sectoral nuances. But I think the Ministry of IT, MeitY, has got into the act. They have the policy environment is becoming more and more proactive and enabling. They are looking at issues of data security, privacy, and we do need that regulatory, not just oversight, but actually the policy environment that would mandate stricter security protocols. Across the board, across sectors. I mean, of course, aviation, there are multiple issues. There are issues of diverting aircraft to nearby airfields and so on. But this is a problem across the economy and has to be holistically looked at.
But you know why it's more worrisome for aviation, and I agree with you, Mr. Mathur, that a website or an online e-commerce service also gets hacked. But look at the implications if you have an airline getting hacked. That is, the damage potentially is much more.
Yes, I agree that airlines being, the nature of the industry, you have aircraft travel, and all of that. I'm with you. I'm not denying that. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is not a problem that is local only to the airlines industry.
I'm sure it's not local only to India as well. Okay.
The point is that because it is a larger problem, it is easier for, it would be easier to deploy greater resources.
All right.
Both in terms of manpower and funding by the government to take measures to improve the security of organizations, including airlines.
Let me get Martin to come in. Martin and Mr. Singh both want to come in. Mark, you go first.
Yeah, so Tamanna, this is something which has been in discussion in India for the last at least 10 years. There was the working document that was submitted by Ministry of INT and CERT in, and it was given to DGCA that this is something which is critical because increasing dependence on third-party software and an increased exposure with IT systems, including LSAP on the 787, as well as use of Jepson on board with iPads. And iPads is not an aviation device. It's a consumer device, but it's brought into aviation. All these issues were brought forward several years ago. We've never really acted upon it. And I disagree. The DGCA, any exposure of any IT system, if it has an exposure with air transport and aircraft, the DGCA has and should. If the DGCA has approved LSAP for the Boeing 787, then they have to approve a system framework that works for maintenance, engineering, flight operations, reservations, these kind of systems, so that we're secure, we're protected, because it's India against the world at the moment. And this is something which will be there. It's a fact of life. We will continue to have more and more hacks. Digital firewalls will be penetrated. And this is something which cannot be ignored. Thankfully, like I said, it's happened on ground. But this is a wake-up call. And unless it's led by the DGCA,
my question
action
now
has
is,
to be taken.
The point now is, and I know Captain Singh, you want to come in, but let me bring it with another area that we should focus on in this discussion. So Spicejet comes and says that we have all of these flight delays because there was an attempted ransomware attack. Our systems and our team is taking care of it. We fixed it and now we're fine. Should this end at that? Let's try and find a conclusion to this conversation. I think everyone's highlighted. Yes, Mr. Mathur, I'm just coming to you. Everyone's highlighted in quite some detail how dangerous this can be. So let's look at what the possible solutions are. Who is this agency who has to, put all of this together, check that IT systems are robust? Yes, Mr. Mathur.
So, I was just coming to that. As I said, this is the future. We are going to have more and more of such attempts. So there, on the one hand, MeitY obviously has to lead the charge, the Ministry of Electronics and IT, because they are the ones that's their administrative jurisdiction. Having said that, the DGCA also needs to improve its in-house capability to monitor issues of cybersecurity, and also lay down protocol that if there is an attack, what level of attack it is, has been the impact. There need to be SOPs, and there has to be a follow-up inquiry, as it happens in other incidents in the aviation sector, that you do have inquiries by DGCA to ascertain what was the cause of the event. So likewise for cyber attacks and cyber incidents, there should be a protocol laid down that would then go into the entire issue and see whether the control systems, etc., were adequate, and what is the remedial action that needs to be taken. So to my mind, the charge has to be led by MeitY, and it is doing a number of things. DGCA needs to step on the pedal, improve its in-house capabilities to deal with this threat, because this is a real threat.
Yeah. On the solutions part of it, yes, Mark.
Tamanna, the solution is very, very clear. And this does not come under security management. It has no concern. It comes under SMS and change management. The airline is responsible. Every time they go ahead with a new initiative, they have to establish an entire hazard identification risk analysis, even if it's a software. It's not just for your facility or the flight line. And this is one part. Software has been ignored time and again. I mean, we just keep on going in for new technology systems. We go for new automation, increased automation, and if this was an airport issue, then we would have probably had luggage and baggage flying to a whole different direction. No, it's not. It's something where the airline said, guys, we have no control anymore, and something has gone wrong and everything is going to be shut down till we figure out what's up. And this is precisely the way it is. Now, airlines, cost optimization, I've always supported cost optimization in airlines, but not at the cost of exposing your digital and IT risk and making yourself vulnerable for hacks or anyone penetrating it and wrecking your entire system like we've seen a short while ago. And this is something where the DGCA needs to get in a bunch of IT experts. They need to get in people. They need to do a IT audit of all airlines to figure what's our cloud exposure, where are those servers, how secure are those servers, where are those remote cloud servers. Can we move it to a cloud server farm in India? Does anything exist? Can it be done? These critical dependencies, reliabilities, imperatives is the only solution we have that's going to make our Indian aviation IT infrastructure rock solid, robust, firewalled, impregnable, impenetrable. And there's no other solution. The DGCA needs to step in now. From what we've seen from the DGCA over the last couple of months, I think they are taking some pretty reasonably aggressive, potent steps. It's good to see that.
They have been quick to respond. We just put out those graphics.
You did a story. Yeah, you did a story on Spicejet. Remember?
So on Spicejet, we did a story. They have put out they've put out a notice just yesterday on telling airlines, please don't sell unserviceable seats. Basically telling them, please don't overbook. Right. And add passengers to seats which aren't, in flying condition or broken or are not working. So they have been quick to respond. Captain Singh, do you think DGCA is the agency that needs to take this forward?
DGCA is the agency because ICAO, which is the UN regulator, has already adopted a cyber security action plan. So if you say that there is nothing called security, so that is a misnomer. There is already a plan in force, which is going to look after all the states are going to come together and form a plan to look at the next level of threat. So this cyber security action plan, which will be updated, and DGCA is going to be a part of it. It is mandatory. So they're going to come up with a document or an annex, which is either a recommendation or a mandate. Will lay out the roadmap.
Cyber security action plan is not something which has been implemented under cost cap in India. It's yet to be fully implemented in the APAC region. This is something which has to be done.
That's immaterial. There is a plan by ICAO.
Disagree. The DGCA is still
One second,
everything
gentlemen.
that comes out of ICAO doesn't get implemented.
Please, Mark,
it has to
hold
come
on.
on the
Hold on, Mark.
It has to be ratified here.
1 minute. Let Captain Singh make his point. If you want to add something, I will come to you after that. But allow him to finish his point, please. Yes, Captain Singh.
So what I was saying that there is already a plan from the top level. So how things work is that if there is a looming threat or what the nation see as a threat, so they come up with a plan. So it is not that ICAO comes up and does some research. There is already research work going on. ICAO adopts that research work and formalizes it into either an annex, which is mandatory for everybody to implement, or a recommendation in the form of a document. So still, that is applicable to DGCA. Once it is enforced and made mandatory, then DGCA has to implement it, which means they have to start working ahead. So it does not happen that one fine day they come up with a plan. There are meetings and there are working papers. So DGCA is already a part of those initiatives.
That's exactly it. The DGCA still is yet to fully implement the ICAO recommendation, which still has to be ratified in cost cap. It's not happened. Right now, DGCA hasn't set up a team to go to airlines to ratify ICAO's recommendation. And the point about drones is also valid. It's right. And if we are going to take that level of go for that technology leap, right now the DGCA has to be extremely aggressive and harsh with this ICAO recommendation. And the fact of the matter is it's not implemented on ground. It's still yet to happen. And that's exactly my point. 2022, this is a wake-up call. It's high time we all got together, accepted the first step to finding a solution is admitting to the problem.
Yes.
Airlines need to come together, get started, find a solution so we don't see this madness like we've seen.
What's important to see the magnitude of the issue. This story has been reported largely through the day as irate passengers complaining about delayed flights by 3 to 4 hours. And as I said, that is very annoying. All sympathies with the passengers and all the inconvenience they faced. But the bigger question we should be asking is, are Indian Airlines vulnerable to ransomware attacks, and what are we doing to secure our skies? I have to end it here, but as always, pleasure speaking to all of you on this issue. Thank you once again for joining us.